What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the long-awaited return of the Devil's Advocates podcast. I'm your host today, alongside my friends Jake and BP. Guys, it's been a minute. What's going on?
Hey yo.
That's it.
What a long response. We took all this time away, and your big reveal of what you've done in this time is Ayo.
That's what he took.
I post something every single morning with updates, so I've always been here. You guys have disappeared.
Yeah, Jake's been carrying the load the past couple months. The reason for a little bit of a lull is because life gets in the way. Everyone's got their own thing going on, but now's the best
It's
time.
the season, baby. Regular season's back.
Oh, baby. Tomorrow, get first game start. Not that important. Real game start on Thursday. We'll get into that a little bit later. But we want to start off. I guess we can just run through preseason really quickly. Pretty eventful. Undefeated. I don't know if we've ever done that before.
I don't know.
So.
We have, but it's been 5 years since someone has done it in the NHL. And the last time it happened, didn't work out so great for that team.
Yeah,
Kinda.
that was the infamous Colorado 55-point season or whatever it was. I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
but
were awful.
I think they got Makar out of it, so they're probably not complaining too much.
No.
Yeah, and I mean with preseason, it's just like you see it in the NFL too, where it's like teams that do really well in the preseason. It's usually because the depth of the prospects are what's shining through there. And so a lot of teams can do really well in the preseason, and then when it gets to the regular season, and it's not just the prospect challenge anymore, they don't do as well. But I think that's kind of, I mean, not even kind of, it's very much so not the case for the Devils.
No.
And it's kind of insane that we are kind of this cup contender, I'll say it already, looking team, and we have the prospect depth that would lead to an undefeated preseason. So I think we're going to be the anomaly here. I think that doesn't indicate our regular season at all with the other teams that may have not done so well after coming out in the preseason like that. I think we're just firing on all cylinders. The prospects are good. The main guys are good. I think we're ready to go.
Jake, what were you? You kept tweeting, just typing in the chats. It was like 105, 0-0.
Yeah, I said it since first preseason game. We won that one. I was like, well, that's all I need to see. We're going to go 105-0-0. So 7-game preseason, 82-game regular season, and then 16-game sweep in the playoffs for the Cup. So far, 7 for 7, kind of nailing it. As far as preseason, I touched on these in all my episodes, so I'll probably end up repeating myself a lot on this one, but we get a bit more listeners on this than I get viewers, I'm pretty sure, so definitely have some fresh ears for that.
If you don't know what Jake's talking about, by the way, go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Link is over there. Make sure you subscribe every day, every morning. Jake's posting all the good stuff, so make sure you check it out.
Yeah, just reactions to what's going on in Devil's World, and now been doing it all off season every day, just eclipsed episode 100 of 100 straight days of doing an episode, and then now that we're actually heading into the regular season, actually interesting stuff to talk about. But anywho, preseason stuff was, I said it, we did not play very many good teams. I mean, the Flyers twice, Montreal. We did get a fairly put together Rangers lineup, but then we played Jonathan Quick, so that basically made it an AHL team. And then we got essentially the Islanders majority starters twice.
Yeah, that last game, it was everyone but Palmieri, I think.
Yeah, so I think the first game was much more competitive. I mean, they scored the first 2 goals, and then we had the crazy comeback. I think that was actually probably our closest NHL equivalent game of the preseason, was the first Islanders one. And I said this when reacting to the embarrassing final showing that they had when they got booed off their home ice. They basically played a full veteran lineup, and I've given every veteran a slack on our team, so I'm not going to go ahead and lay into another team's veterans. They're usually coasting, maybe they're playing 70-80% capacity for the most part. They still probably should have beaten our guys, but all of our guys were going full tilt, right? I mean, we were playing all dudes that were fighting for literally contracts for the AHL, or guys that were fighting to make the big club. And when you bring that energy difference, I mean, they still had Sorokin, they probably still should have won, but Schmid played really well. And I think if not for how well Schmid played, it probably isn't as embarrassing looking for them as it was. But it's preseason; they had basically all veterans. I don't put too much stock into that.
It's still a little embarrassing when the whole timeline is cooking you. I mean, that's like if we played, I don't know who the Rangers like ECHL team is. If that's like we had like our top 6 and they played those guys and they got shut out. I mean, the game was competitive. I guess if you looked at the stats and everything, but like 3-0, you can't lose. You can't lose 3-0. Against those guys. No disrespect to those guys. They have more skill in like one blade of their skate than I do my entire body. But like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and like especially when the home fans are booing, and Amanda, in preseason, that when you can't take that, like even if it's preseason, even if it doesn't matter in the standings, you gotta put on for the fans. I'm sure they were trying, and if they were coming in with the mindset of it's preseason, it doesn't matter, whatever, we don't care. When it's the second period and you're down 3-0, the fans are booing. They were trying to score a goal. Like there was no.
Oh, absolutely.
Even Amanda Stein tweeted out that it looked like the team was getting frustrated. So it is preseason, and ultimately it doesn't matter. They'll bounce back from it. But I don't even buy the whole like, oh, they weren't trying, that it doesn't mean anything, because like if you watch that game, they got a little frustrated and it took over a little bit. They were trying and they still like couldn't get it done.
Also, if there's any team in the NHL to try in the regular season, it's the Lou Lamoriello Islanders. Of any team in the league, it's those guys.
I'll make one clarifying point. When I say guys are playing at 70-80, it's not that they're not trying. I still think they're absolutely trying, but they're not going full bore, full tilt, really. I think a lot of the guys are more so thinking, yeah, we're frustrated, we're trying to score, obviously. They had multiple breakaways, multiple 2-on-1s, where they could have, and Schmid just shut the door on them. But, yeah, they're just not throwing the body like they did a little bit after the frustration set in, but it was not full tilt from puck drop, basically.
Anders Lee could not handle himself. Dude, he got real pissy. Yeah, he I mean 2 or 3 times tried to like wrap someone up post whistle. He was taking it to heart.
But yeah, I don't want to focus too much on how bad the other teams we played were, because it's just kind of facts. But instead, we can. I mean, those Flyer teams, but it's the Flyers, right? I've shat on them basically all preseason. They were terrible. The Rangers were embarrassing. And then Montreal was Montreal too. But our boys, at least focusing on the guys that we just found out, 2 minutes before we started recording, the roster officially dropped.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And top scorer in the entire NHL in preseason. Some unknown dude kind of came out of nowhere. Pretty crazy. I think we're 63. Do we have any strong opinions on that unknown phenomenon coming out of preseason?
I mean, what do you want me to say here? No, I mean, Justin Bratt's the best player in the NHL. Leave it at that.
Really, all that was going through my head there was the Brat meme, and not the Brat meme, Bart meme in the classroom.
Like
say the line, Bart.
Yeah, no, the NHL posted point leaders at the end of preseason, and Jesper Bratt was number 1. It was just like, well, guys, I've been trying to tell you the whole time,
Nobody's listening and shouting from the rooftops. Yeah, you had Big Head Hockey too. He kept tweeting pictures of Jack and Brian's best young core in the NHL. It's like, what do you? It's like, yeah, dude, of course.
Done been known.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
yeah, but look.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, looking at the roster that just came out, it's pretty much what everyone kind of expected.
It's what you would expect.
It's what the Devils kind of poised towards. If you were paying attention to how management was talking about certain players and the moves that were made, I mean, a guy like Miller, let's say, they didn't bring him in just to send him down to the AHL. I famously said that from the jump, that he was never really an option to go down. He was always going to make the team. So I think there's certain things where if you could read between the lines even a little bit going into camp, some of these should have been no-brainers. There's 1 or 2 that stand out to me, though. One being Holtz. I thought he was going to make the team the whole time. Again, one of those read between the lines things. I don't really think that it was ever a possibility that they wanted him to start back in the AHL again this season. They spoke about him pretty highly coming out of camp, So I think that's kind of a no-brainer to me. But what do you guys think?
I mean,
I
go
was
ahead. Yeah, sorry.
I was convinced he was locked to making the opening night roster when we didn't bring in an additional winger after Toffoli. We sent one out in the Toffoli trade and brought him in, and then when I know the Tatar news came out. I don't think we ever spoke about that. I think that came out after our last recording. How we offered him a 1-year deal, but he was fairly positive he'd be able to get more than that on the market. And then
Which he should
we
have
brought
done,
in.
but it's kind of crazy that he got a
Yeah,
1-year deal.
I think Colorado's a great spot for him.
They're so
But
good. They're
yeah,
so good at
best of luck.
everything.
Yeah, best of luck to him. But once we didn't bring anyone else in, I was convinced Holtz was making it. The only caveat to that was Holtz is waiver exempt. So if we had brought somebody in, it was pretty easy. I talk about it a lot. Asset management. Typically, ownership groups, management do not like just losing players for nothing when they had the option not to. And nobody very clearly outplayed Holtz in any way. Like I was pretty high on how Tice played this preseason. I thought he played very well, but not better than Holtz, and not well enough that he would be that middle six guy to replace Holtz in the lineup. Kind of touching on that, I thought he maybe gave himself an outside chance of making the fourth line, but considering how stacked we were at options there, it makes sense. He's not also a household name by any means. He was probably the safest of all the names to make it through waivers. One thing I will say is, I think we said on this podcast from the very jump, when we basically predicted starting night rosters, we basically nailed this 23 for 23, with one exception. I don't think any person I know had Lazar, Nosek, and Tierney all making the technical opening roster. Now, that being said, I'm sure we all agree once Foot comes off of IR, Tierney is going to get sent down.
Yeah, and Holla is also like banged up right now, so he might not play Thursday or Friday or one of the two. So I guess they just want like a contingency plan to like rotate
I
him with
believe
Lazar.
I believe officially we got our 4 IR names with
Oh, we did.
yeah, and Holla wasn't on there. So
Okay.
it seems like he should be good to go for opening night.
I mean, it doesn't hurt. Also, you brought him in. We all know why Tierney was brought in over the summer.
Yeah.
It's no surprise. I mean, and again, the organization needs center depth in general. Utica's pretty weak down the middle, and there's worse guys to get for Utica. So, it's not
Yeah,
a
when Tierney
surprise.
was given the 2-way contract, it was pretty clear
Yeah.
where they pictured him going forward. But yeah, I think the organization tends to do very well by their players, and maybe this is a little tinfoil hatty, maybe not. At least for the more veteran guys, not the super young guys that would have to go through waivers, it does seem like the organization wants to do better by them. So Tierney staying up an extra few days or a week, earning that little bit more of a paycheck, or not having to move with him and his family. The younger guys maybe have a girlfriend, but I'm pretty sure Tierney has a wife and kid. So, not that the organization isn't going to keep him up here just because of that, but
I'm sure he's not hurting for cash, but yeah.
yeah, it's more so just maybe it's one of those backroom just, hey, the longest we can keep you up here is going to be this, but
Right, you were here all camp, like opening night roster, you get an introduction to the fans, all that good stuff.
we'll do right by you, but expect this. When Foot's back, you're probably gone.
Yeah. Also, just to touch on last thing on Holtz for me, I guess is just because like I think they're just gonna give him the longest like leash possible, because at this point you kind of have to. I don't want to say it. What's that?
I was saying last thing on Holtz. I plan on rambling about Holtz here for probably a good 20 minutes.
Okay, good. So I guess you can just piggyback off what I say. I mean, you have to let him. You gotta let him run. I mean, this is the best team we've had in God knows how long. You drafted him for the very reason why we still need him in the top 9 is, we went out and got to Foley, and we have a bunch of snipers in the top 6 now. He's, excuse me, he's still there. Like, if he's not going to do it now, when's it going to happen? It's sink or swim, I think.
Yeah, he has nothing left in the AHL for him.
No,
he has
he's too good for that.
Yeah, there is no, quote unquote development to be had at that point for him. He's either got to sink or swim in the NHL. I mean, he's going into his 3rd year now at this level.
Something like that.
I think because this will be Mercer's 3rd year. They're the same year, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. There's just nothing left for him anywhere else. He has to sink or swim. He has to prove himself or not, and he needs to be put in a position to be able to be given a proper evaluation. It's the only option. It was kind of always the only option, and I did a Twitter space earlier, I think last week, with Ryan Novozinski, and we kind of talked about this and how management positions themselves, and I kind of like alluded to this a couple minutes ago, but coming into camp, all they said about him was that he looked so improved and he looked so much better. And even last year, Lindy Ruff had said something along the lines of, "Oh, we'll see. I don't know." And this year, Lindy Ruff was just like, "Oh no, he looks great. Like he looks better." So they're very media trained with what they say
Right,
and
yeah.
what they let out and that kind of stuff. So something like that, the moment they started talking about him that way, you knew he's gonna at least get his chance here. They set it up that way, so I'm looking forward to it. I think he looked good with
Wasn't
Heishier and Meyer. I know they had a 58% expected goals for rate while they were on the ice together, which you could argue that maybe it would have been higher if it was Heishier, Meyer, and someone else. But the bottom line is he didn't anchor them. He didn't tank that. They still played well together, and he had a few goals. So I think he did enough to warrant this trial run of show me what you got. Let's see if you're ready.
also
Because
he just
it has to be.
exactly. He also just objectively looks way faster than he did in years past, and he also said it himself. There was an interview that I think he did on NewJerseyDevils.com or whatever. I forget who did it, but he just said that he's like, yeah, like I just feel like his cardiovascular levels are like so much better. Like he can skate like way longer. He's faster. He can keep up with these guys now. I mean, you kind of
Yeah.
have to with the guys we have up front. Like you can't be a slouch when you're playing with Jack, Nico, Brat. Like if you're playing
Right.
on the third line with Hala and Palat, like you can probably get away with that a little bit more. But obviously, we want him. They want him. He wants to play in the top six. So like, I think he's ready. I mean, as someone who lives and dies like by the analytics, like I'll sacrifice like 3-4% like expected goal share if you have someone like him who, I mean, he's an underrated playmaker. He's got a good shot. I mean, at this point too, it's like kind of with Jesper, like his mental health. It's like let the kid go. Like tell him you got confidence in him, even if you don't fully believe it. Just, like let him fly. You never know what's gonna happen. At this point, you have nothing to lose.
A little positive reinforcement will make his
Exactly.
career, huh?
Exactly. Y'all need it once in a while.
All right, I've got 3 line setups that I wanted to go over with you guys. So sticking with Holtz, we all, I'm sure, agree Jack, Bratt, Toffoli are stapled to each other until hopefully
Until
forever.
Until they go down 2-0 in a game, and Lindy hates the game that Jesper Bratt has played, so he sticks him on the third
So
line and
Thomas and Nosek
gets
is playing line of play.
yeah, and Nosek was with Hughes, but until then we got the TBH line going to Foley, Bratt, Hughes.
So with that in mind, where are you placing Holtz? Also remember, we just had the Lindy interview where he said the reason for Mercer and Holtz swapping was because of Holla being out. They really like Mercer with Nico for the defensive responsibility. You can read between the lines as much as you want there, but assuming a healthy Holla, if you had to put your name on it, what is your middle six setup? Obviously, Nico Timo, Holla Palat are center left wings. Where you putting Holtz? Where you putting Mercer?
I'm good with either. I've kind of said this a lot, like obviously not on the podcast, but like in our chats and whatever. Like the top nine is going to be so fluid. I personally don't care. I think Mercer's better, not better suited, but like for the case of Alex Holtz, like if Mercer's on line 3, and Holtz gets to play with Nico and Timo, because those guys are 2 of the 4 best play drivers on the team. Like, let them cook. Holtz will get open. He had some good plays in preseason where he was reading the play a little bit. He was on the backside of defender. He would like step in front, take the open space, and he finished a couple times. So I kind of like that. Mercer's game is, I wouldn't say better suited, but the way Palat and Holla play, he can fit that style more than Holtz can. He can grit and grind. He's got an unbelievable shot. He showed that in the playoffs last year. So yeah, I think Mercer line 3, Holtz line 2 to start. But I've kind of always figured that the top 9 wingers are pretty fluid and in any way, shape, or form. So not too bothered either way, but that's the way I would go.
I would agree with the placements, but I'd be a little more firm with it. I think we're going to see both. I think Holtz is going to get his shot with Hischier and Meyer, and Mercer's also going to get some time with them. I think we will definitely see both pairings, and they'll see what works and what doesn't, and they'll just, prove us wrong no matter what we say. But personally, going into the season at least, the expectation, in my opinion, has to be that Holtz is going to slot in with Hischier and Meyer, just because when we talk about putting him in a position to succeed, that's got to be it. I don't think Palat and Hala are really the position for him to succeed. I think you got to throw him up there, and if it really doesn't work out, we can readjust. But I've seen a lot of takes, especially on Twitter, of we don't have room for any passengers, and we can't have a third guy on a line with 2 really good play drivers just kind of existing and not also being a stud as well. And I think that's crazy. Look around the NHL. There are so many lines that have 2 borderline superstar players and a third guy that's just a guy.
Like Patrick
It
Laine,
happens, right? It happens all the time. It's not uncommon. And when you're roster building, you got to spread the wealth, firepower all over the lineup. You're gonna end up, unless you have 12 skaters that are absolute studs, which 0 teams have. I mean, most teams barely have 9 serviceable skaters. Let's be honest. Sorry, forwards here, not skaters.
Okay, yeah.
It always ends up that there will always be lines on every team that are rather lopsided in terms of 2 guys that are generally better than a third guy, and a third guy's kind of a plug-and-play guy. And if Holtz is going to be just a third-wheel plug-and-play guy, so be it. Fine. But we have to find out if he's that or if he's on the same level as those guys. Let him do it. And I don't think Mercer has that aura about him where we have to see. I think Mercer will do just fine with Hala and Palat. If there's going to be one position that fails, it's Holtz with Hala and Palat. Because every other combination we've talked about generally I think should work out. Mercer on either one works out. Holtz with Hischier and Meyer works out. Holtz with Hala and Palat I don't think works out as well. So I think you got to avoid that situation there. I think that's the most important thing.
Boring because I mostly agree with all the above. I've talked about it. I think Holtz, Nico, Timo is the best way to go. It should be what we start with. We should give them probably like a 10-game run unless it looks just somehow absolutely atrocious. But I'll throw in 2 just fun little tidbits just for potential talking points or sound bites. One would be Barry Mercer, quote unquote Barry Mercer on the third line to save us some money on his next contract. Will not put up as many points on that line as he would in the top 6.
I think he's getting paid regardless, though.
Well, yeah, no,
but he has.
But if he,
right.
if he played this full season with Nico and Timo, I mean, he's probably putting up what 60 minimum,
yeah,
probably. So now we're talking maybe 50 on the third line if he's like really popping off. So, tinfoil, management, working under the hood type stuff. We're securely a playoff team, so tank a few regular season points for some better contract structuring. And one other thing I'll toss in there is Holtz. I don't think is the end of the world with Palat Hala. I don't think it's as ideal as I have repeatedly said.
It's not ideal, but it could work, I think.
Not ideal, but I don't think it's an absolute disaster by any means. I mean, one of my favorite sound bites out of Hala last year was when he actually was on a line with Jack and Palat. Obviously, Jack and Holtz are not even in the same stratosphere. But the line from Hala was, you just get open, let Palat and I do the digging, and we'll get you the puck.
Yep.
If that's the mindset that Hala and Palat can play with, that we're going to be the puck hounds, the 2 of us, we're going to be in the trenches doing that hard, gritty work, and you just got to find that open ice for us to get you the puck, Holtz can do that. And if it's more in that third line role, it's not as detrimental for, if he's not the highest scoring dude in the entire world, as opposed to if he's not super popping off in the top 6.
Right, and also...
All that being said, though, I think he should be with Nico and Timo. I think Mercer will absolutely cook with Palat and Hala. I'll repeat myself here because, like I said, probably just have more ears here than my other videos. Jack and Brat are likely going to get the harder matchups defensively from the other team when the other team has say in that. And I think Paula Palat are going to get the lion's share of D zone starts, with Nico Timo line kind of being in the middle of that. So the Jack Brat line getting mostly O zone starts, Paula Palat getting mostly D zone starts, Nico Timo line kind of being the in between of those, with the fourth line being where you need them just based on how things roll. I think it will be a 4-line rolling team for the most part. We're not going to try and hard match teams just because they're not going to be able to match us doing that. But just when you take zone starts into consideration per line, I think Holtz is better off on that in between as opposed to playing potentially the top defensive matchups or the top D zone start. And kind of been my thoughts on it.
That's exactly what I was going to go. I mean, if you want to give those three, that being Holtz, Palat, and Holla, if you want to give them like offensive zone starts and then like the neutral zone starts like just outside the opponent's blue line, or if you want to give Palat and Holla D zone starts, you can just put Bastion on their line for a shift if you get hemmed in for a second, because Nate's a more than capable defensive bottom six winger. I think he's a well overqualified fourth line right wing. One of the statistics say he's one of the best defensive forwards in the league. He just is. I don't know what he does, but he just does it. But yeah, no, I kind of agree with everything you kind of said there, pretty much.
Unless you guys had a last point there, I think Andrew deserves an award as best host for setting up the transitions. As the next line I wanted to talk about was that fourth line, which I would assume, again, I've talked about this a lot, if Bastion's conditioning is up to snuff, he just started skating last month, well, I guess technically a month and a half ago now, recovering from his injury. But if you assume the fourth line of McLeod Bastion, who's your fourth line left winger while Foot is still out? I think there's two clear names.
I mean, it's just Nosek, isn't it? Or is it Lazar?
Is it?
I hope it's not Lazar.
What do you think, BP?
I think there's going to be a lot of turnover on that line. I think it's really going to be the kind of attitude they took last year with goalies, where it's like, it's no one's slot, we're just riding the hot hand, whoever's playing well at the time gets it. I think we're going to see a lot of that between Lazar, Nosek, Tierney while he's around. I don't think there's going to be any one guy particularly that's designated to the press box. Unless someone is really riding a hot streak. They're going to share time. Whoever's playing well is going to get it. Whoever's just doing the job on that fourth line the best is going to get it. I think McLeod and Bastion are probably the two locks, and it's kind of going to be a revolving door of who needs rest and who's playing well from there. I know it's kind of a cop-out, but
I think Nosek's going to take it just because of the PK duties. Because his PK stats are really good.
Maybe you can pull the numbers, because maybe I completely mixed this up, but I was actually going to say the exact opposite for the exact same reason.
Were you really? No, I think like using JFresh's metrics, I'll pull it up.
And you look at it, I think we might have lost BP, but
I'm still here. I just got something stuck in my teeth and figured that people don't need to see that.
I wanted to. But, so if Bastion is not ready to go, obviously it's going to be Lazar Nosek with Mikey. But once Bastion, hopefully opening night, but assuming Bastion's ready to go, my take is it's going to be Lazar. I think he had a better preseason than Nosek, and I think he was more utilized on the PK than Nosek was.
That's fair. I mean, I take your word for it. To be honest with you, I didn't watch too much of the preseason or pay too close of attention. I also just tried to pull up
game.
I also just tried to pull up the JFresh charts on my other monitor, but it just messed up the screen recording, so I had to get rid of it. But I think his like PK WAR was like north of 80, which is really good. And I think the PK might be a bit of a sore spot this year with Graves and Sharon Govich leaving. But with
you guys see Jesper Bratt get some PK time this preseason?
I have been pounding the table for that to happen for so long, because he did that.
Happened his rookie year.
He did his rookie year, and he was unbelievable.
Yeah, they're. This is one thing that I've really, really liked about Lindy Ruff in his time here, is that he's stressed the idea that being shorthanded doesn't mean you have to sacrifice all your offense, that you can catch a team off guard, when they're in the offensive zone for a long time. You can grab the puck and just shoot. When I say shoot, I mean like skate really fast, shoot. But like shoot yourself down the ice and try to take advantage of a vulnerable spot they're in. So if Jesper Bratt gets penalty kill time, and the goal is not just to kill the penalty, but try to generate some offense while he's doing it, I am all in. I would love that.
Even if it's like,
You ready?
even if, sorry, just to tie bow on that, even if you're down like 1-0 late in the game or whatever, you need a goal. Nico Bratt, go
Yeah.
do it.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to throw in a few tidbits here. I'm going to finish up what we were just talking about. So I pulled it up on Natural Stat Trick. I am not very good at this website, so hopefully I did this somewhat right. Curtis Lazar and Tomas Nosek had a 6-second difference in PK time killing. They both played basically 5 minutes each. They both played almost 5 minutes together, and then they each played almost 5 minutes separately on the PK. So they both had, and the stats were basically indistinguishable for the most part. Nosek was had a lot more chances against, but also had more chances for, where Lazar kind of had basically nothing for, but had a lot less against. But when you percentage it out, it was fairly close. So, yeah, looks like they were both teeing him up to be able to play that role. So we'll see. I still think Lazar on the whole had the better preseason, but at this point, it's whatever. It can be either or, because Tierney's going to get sent down, and then there'll be our two healthy scratches when Foot's back.
Listen, it's not Miles Woods, so it's fine with me.
And then I will say, with Bratt being on the PK, I think with stuff like that, we're going to see. That's when we're going to see Holtz get some time with Jack.
Sure, for a shifted to after big PK kill.
Right after a PK, if Bratt's one of the last guys out there or just took a shift and comes off, when they go full tilt again, Holtz is not going to be PKing at all, so he'll be fully fresh. Nico is probably PKing a bit still, so probably going to give him a moment's rest before they throw Timo out there. Or maybe you see a Jack Holtz Timo line fresh off of a PK and just come barreling through the zone. But you kind of get those fun little line mix-ups after PK.
Right.
And I think that's when you might see,
That's a testament to the
Holtz
roster
get
building.
chance. Yeah, Holtz get some chances with other guys. Just see how it goes there.
Yeah.
All right. On to my final line topic. Defense.
That's where I was gonna go.
I think we all had Luke on the second pair, and I think we all now have Ball in that spot. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
Kevin Ball looks
Yeah.
like a monster.
he's a
Yeah, no,
ball.
Ball. Insane. So we got Dougie Siegs, obviously, Ball Marino, top four. Luke. And then the next two are Miller Smith. Two things. Who do you prefer? Who do you think starts?
I prefer Miller. Smith's gonna start.
I, to be honest, haven't seen enough of Miller to really give an educated opinion on him. I think I made that pretty clear so far.
Appreciate the honesty.
But I think just going off preseason and training camp, it looks like they're leaning heavy on Smith. Miller had a rough preseason, and I am really just looking at a preseason isolated without a whole body of work of his career to this point, and I understand that. So that'll obviously play a big, factor in how we move forward. But as of right now, as of today, with the last week and a half of play, Miller has looked brutal. He's just looked awful for the most part, in my opinion. And Smith is not the best defenseman in the world. He takes a lot of stupid penalties, but I mean, we're arguing over a 6D, 7D here. Every team, again, I think this is something that Devils fans think is unique to us, and it's really not. You can go to any team in the league, and they're arguing 6D, 7D, and treating them like they're ECHL players that don't belong in the league whatsoever. So I don't think that's really a super unique problem. I think Smith, as far as 6D goes, is fine, and it looks like they're going to roll with him at least, again, until he proves otherwise.
I mean, Brent Smith's a more than capable 6D, but the thing is, and you can't really ignore it because it's so prevalent, are the penalties. And
Right.
going back to the Rangers series, like after we went down 2-0, Jack and Lindy were like, guys, like, what the hell are we doing with all these penalties? We're shooting ourselves in the foot. So Brent Smith might just end up playing himself out of the role Like if
Oh, he can. Yeah.
if we're up like say I don't know opening night, God forbid, like we're up like 2-0 or whatever. Brendan Smith takes like a huge like he pulls like a Steve Bernier trigger warning. Sorry, he just kills someone in the corner and then takes a major penalty, and then the Wings score 2 or 3 goals, get back in the game, and then we lose. It's like that's why you're not playing, and to give Miller a little bit of like to give him some leeway. It's like it's well known that the system the Devils play is not normal. Comparing what we run here to what he ran with Pete DeBoer down in Dallas, it's probably two. I'm no expert. They're probably on the opposite sides of the spectrum in terms of defensive structure. So, I mean, he'll play his way in eventually because I think he's just better all around. But I'm not really gonna lose sleep over it now. Brendan Smith's probably gonna start. Do I like it? No. Do I care? Not really.
Probably not.
Not really.
Yeah, so over their careers, I think Miller has been clearly the better player compared to Brendan Smith.
Not close, yeah.
Smith, though, is definitely a loved locker room guy. He's also a great interview. He also knows the system.
Exactly.
As Andrew here was saying, we know our system is insanely unique. From what players have said, even basically across the other 31 NHL teams, AHL squad, a lot of these guys know a handful, 5, 6 different systems that just have slight variances amongst them, and ours is basically nothing like that, especially for defensemen. It's like one of the most unique defensive systems in hockey, as far as we understand it. So going by the preseason, Luke with Miller and Luke with Smith both were very brutal.
He needs to play with Marino. I've been saying that forever too. Him with Marino just makes way too much sense, but I don't think he's going to get that just yet because of how well Ball played. And Ball deserves to play there because he played outstanding.
Ball forced Luke out of that spot.
Yeah, and that's a great problem to have. Do I want Luke to play top 4? Absolutely. If we win more games with Ball in the second pair, am I going to care? No.
So a little bit, just real quick, BP. So Luke played over twice as many minutes with Miller in the preseason as opposed to Smith. And you can look at that two ways. This is what they thought might be the bottom pairing for a bit, and they were giving it a real run. But I think most of the Smith-Luke minutes came towards the end as well. Luke also got some time with Nemec. Obviously, that is not our bottom pair. I'm actually going to go out on a limb and say I prefer Miller, and I think he ends up with the start. He's going to get another full week of practice from the last preseason game heading into the regular season. They're going to want him out there, and the best way to learn the system is just on ice hockey and playing it. And even within those minutes, I mean, Smith might have individually looked better than Miller at points, but on ice impacts, Luke Miller was infinitely better. Still bad. Just want that to be clear. Luke Miller was still bad, but compared to Luke Smith, it was a lot better. And then in the whole entire 2 minutes that Luke and Marino really got to play together, they had a 100% Corsi, 100% goals for, 100% everything. They cooked, but it was only for like 2 minutes of actual ice. But in those 2 minutes, they had 5 chances, which was more than Luke and Smith had in 14 minutes. So
yeah, Luke and Marino last year in the playoffs, I had this written down like a while ago. It was like they played like 21 minutes or whatever together, I think in game 5 against Carolina, and they had like an expected goals for like it was like 65 plus or something like that. Like that's the pairing that's gonna work. It'll happen eventually to start the season. Luke's play doesn't warrant him top 4 minutes yet. I'm sure he'll play his way in there. Like the talent, he's too good to not force his way there eventually. But for now, it's Ball Marino. I mean, that's really good.
He'll be there at some point, but
I will say there's also kind of a disconnect when it comes to line or pairing numbers with playtime versus just chemistry and play style, because Ball's play put him into what we would consider a top 4 position, move him up the depth chart. But if we are looking at play style and chemistry and stuff, Luke Marino and keeping Ball on the third pair maybe does make more sense. And I think that's kind of where we look at numbers in pairings and depth charts and stuff that maybe coaches don't quite as much, where they may still put Ball in the third pair, not because he didn't play well and he's getting demoted to the third pair, but because he works better with whoever's on the third pair and Luke works better with whoever's on the second pair. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of a fluctuation in those pair numbers. simply because I don't think they adhere quite as closely to a depth chart as much as just these guys work well together. This is who we're putting on the ice together.
Right,
If that
and
makes sense.
just to touch on this before I lose my train of thought, it's kind of the same thing with our top 9, how it's really fluid. I think that Ball and, like, this is exactly what you're referring to. It's like Ball and Luke are probably going to play similar minutes, maybe like 1 or 2 minutes different. Like with
Right.
Brian on the PK, like, if we're down late in the game, throw Luke out there with Marino instead of Ball, because obviously he has way more offensive talent than Ball does. It's like, okay, 5 minutes left in the game, you're down 1, you need a goal, push a little bit more. Who better than Luke? He's literally a forward. Just throw him out there, he'll make something happen. So yeah, exactly. So he'll get his chances, but to start, I think that's fine.
Yeah,
It's the same argument we have. Sorry, it's the same. I'll keep it quick. One sentence. I'll be done in a moment. No, I'm kidding. It's the same argument we have with our top 2 lines of which is our first line, which is our second line, and the answer is neither one of them is a 1 or a 2. It's just which guys work well together. That's who plays together.
Yep.
Sorry. Continue.
Yeah, no, I agree. Depth chart, I don't think is that fans focus on that way more than coaches or players do. So I agree. I think Luke will earn his way into the quote-unquote top 4, but I'll be honest, I would not be surprised if we don't see the lines depth chart-wise actually shake out that way. I think management and Lindy, the coaching staff, are actually over the goddamn hill with how well Ball has played, because they are just going to straight up look at him as a Graves switch out.
Which I
And
think
with the way
go ahead.
with the way they used Graves Marino last year, and then with Sivo as the completely outplays third line competition offensive guy on a bottom line, they're going to look at Luke to do that. And then you keep him with Miller, and it's just they're going to basically run it back how we did last year, just plug and play with Ball and Luke as compared to Graves and Sivo. And Luke should be better offensively than Severson, but I'll be honest, I don't know if he's going to be better right out the gate. Stretch passes from Sivo were so underrated by this entire fan base last year. Every highlight package you look up, it's like, oh, that was another pass from Sivo. Oh, hey, that was another pass from Sivo.
It would be completely ignored.
Yeah, and so Luke has an amazing stretch pass as well. So we'll see exactly how he fills that spot. But if Ball plays how he played in the preseason, we have an abundance of riches across this lineup, and it's just scary.
I think he's a ready-made Graves replacement because he will take his spot over on the PK, which kind of helps ease my nerves a little bit because Graves was underratedly good on the PK. Also, he won't shoot the puck into shin pads quite as much as Graves would. That drove me up. That drove me up a wall. But yeah, as far as like you mentioned, like the overqualified third pair, I kind of from the jump I was like, oh, Kyle Miller is the defensive version of Damon Severson that we had last year, except that, like you said, that might just be Luke, and you might just have a really overqualified third line, or third pairing rather. Sorry, but there's no problem with that. Like that's how you win cups and you win games and you go really far into the playoffs.
If I want to give Matt a fun little soundbite, our third line is going to be better than the Stars' top line when Miller was still with them, because Luke is better than Heiskanen, and Miller played with Heiskanen as their top line, and that's going to be our third pairing.
Yeah, when we got him, that was surprising to find that out. I didn't know that happened. But
yeah, he played a lot.
He'll be used to playing with guys who are roaming up and down the ice, which is good. Just the systems are different, so.
For the sake of clips and memes, I really enjoy how you use the word line instead of pairing when saying that. So when they isolate it out on its own and you say the Devils' third line is better than the Stars' first line, oh man, Palat, Holla, and Mercer are better than
I was like, no.
Robo and Hintz and Pavelski.
I was like, no.
K-Rob can't even skate.
Yeah.
Pavelski's over the hill.
Bro, I'm glad you brought that up. We never touched on that on the podcast. We have our own version of Jason Robertson. We have Lenny over in Finland making JP.
We can't bring that up without JP.
Yeah, we gotta hold off.
We'll bring it up for now, but we will next time he's on. We'll make sure we let him say his piece.
Was there anything else? I know we're saving opening night, our first 2 games for the next episode.
Yeah, we'll have
Thursday. We're gonna actually talk on ice matchups and all that good stuff finally. Was there anything from camp preseason or anything around the NHL even that we really just wanted to touch on real quick before we wrap up?
Just because. Go ahead.
Yeah, go for it. No, go for it.
I was just gonna say because we brought it up so many times on Twitter and on this podcast a couple of times. Today, kind of out of nowhere, Hellebuck and Scheifele up in Winnipeg re-signed 7-year, $8.5 million contracts each. So obviously, Hellebuck will not be coming to New Jersey. Looking at their contracts,
Yep. Thanks.
would you have done that?
No.
No,
God,
neither would I. I think you would have every single Devils fan telling you the same thing. If it was a pure rental, I would have absolutely done it, like no questions asked. But 7 years, $8.5 million per. That's like the goaltending version of the Andre Palat contract, albeit skills way better, but it could be an anchor very quickly.
Like 4 years ago, I would have given Helly that.
Yeah.
Like four years ago, feels about right. I would have done that. Not now. Not now at all.
I also just don't hate it from a Winnipeg perspective, though. Like, guys don't want to play there, and okay, age curves aside, like, just pull into the current back. It's like, good for them. Like, they kept their two of their best players for 7 years.
Their ownership group, I think, also is having some financial difficulties and really needs to keep butts in seats and needs as many even first round playoff exits. Any extra playoff game is good for them. So, and with Hellebuck, at least for the next couple of years, I would say, you make the playoffs. He's, especially in the West, he's someone that can carry you far, basically on his own.
The Central's not that good outside of
Yeah,
Colorado.
so for them and the players, I don't hate it at all. I mean, Hellebuck gets his money. Winnipeg stays, middle of the pack relevant for at least another handful of years. And no chance any Devils fan is giving that contract to Hellebuck.
No, I think we all agreed that in the perfect scenario that Hellebuck does join the Devils, it would have to be under the circumstance that he doesn't actually get paid what he's worth. So I think we all knew it was a pipe dream for that reason alone. Good for Winnipeg. It reminds me a lot of an NFL comparison. For so many years, Matthew Stafford was like the highest paid quarterback in the league. And everyone always wondered, like, why isn't it Tom Brady? Why isn't it Peyton Manning, at the time? And it was always just because that's how much they had to pay Matthew Stafford to play for the Detroit Lions at the time. And it's 100% true.
No, that's funny.
He always got the biggest contract in the league because that's how much it costed for them to keep him. And that's just what is happening here. That's how much it costs to keep a player of that level in Winnipeg. It's true. It just is. So no, I would not have paid it here. I'm glad that we didn't. Sucks that it didn't work out in a perfect world. However, this is the perfect time now to start the conspiracy theory of they're going to give us 7 years of Hellebuck with 50% retention at the trade deadline.
Right.
We're not giving up.
I'll be honest. I wouldn't do that either, probably. Well,
At 50%? At
or
4.25
4.25 for 7 years, though.
You'd take that.
Probably. No, I probably take it.
I was going to say, you'll want to copy at least.
I would do it. Yeah, you're right. I would do it.
You'd likely get 4 years of prime elite goaltending and a 3-year drop-off. That's just how sports contracts work. Everyone knows that when you sign a long contract, you're essentially paying double for the first half.
But it's going to be really hard for me to give another goalie that when Vanacek and Schmid go 41-0 each in the regular season and then 8-0 each in the playoffs. Like, why
they're going to split time in the playoffs when going undefeated?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, Vitek in Game 4 Stanley Cup Finals. Like, that's the last guy I would want.
Well, and at the intermission commercial break in the second period, they actually switch them out.
30 minutes a game each.
Yep. Yeah. No, we got to keep them fresh.
Sounds good.
A reliever.
For around the NHL, I don't think I had anything else too crazy. I'll take a moment here to make fun of Canucks fans, as is my favorite thing in the entire world to do. You're going to lose Pettersson. Good for him. I love him as a player. Nico's still better. But, yeah, no one wants to be in Vancouver. And you guys deserve pain. So, yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah, that was a pretty damning quote from him. This doesn't look good.
Yeah. I think the only other thing that we didn't talk too much about, unless I'm just forgetting if we let off with it, was Nemec, but I think we're all on the same page there. I think it's pretty straightforward. There's really no two ways about it. We have so much going on for us that we really just don't have any sense of urgency in adding him to the roster. We don't need the help at this point. And if he's not completely and totally ready and we can afford to let him, cook for one more season in the AHL, then we're going to choose that option right now. And I don't think any of us would be surprised to see him get called up at points during the season. I mean, is there any disagreement to be had there?
No, I think he played well. I think he played well enough to probably make it, but like there's no need for him to be up here. Like
it's just not necessary.
If you can let it slide another year, do it.
Yeah, talked about this as well. Good call. We definitely needed to touch on this topic. So good. Good on BP bringing it up.
Yeah.
Nemec played very well. I think there's even arguments that on the whole he played better than Luke in the preseason.
Yeah,
I would also say that being waiver exempt and the option of being able to slide his contract is just way too valuable to burn him on a third line here. All of Lindy's quotes made this very obvious that this was always happening. I mean, just outside of just the asset management, which is my favorite two words, Lindy's quotes made this super apparent that he was being sent down. And that was one other thing I wanted to say on this. I mentioned this in one of my episodes. Probably 29 other NHL teams, he'd be making their opening night roster.
Oh, easy.
Yeah.
Easy.
If not 31 others. I'm trying to think. Probably not Vegas, right? Probably not Vegas, not us, and Carolina.
No, he'd probably get on Carolina. I think they're playing Jalen Chatfield.
He's good.
He's good, but
yeah, Nemec even makes it probably over him. So yeah, it's just we have an embarrassment of riches. Our contract situation also allows us to do this, and so yeah, he played very well. Nemec, I mean, seriously, fantastic. Just the fact that we have him waiting in the wings is insane.
Yep, Tom's big on roster flexibility and sliding contracts around, so that's just going to give us more money to play with. When he should have gotten paid, he'll be making $925, and it'll give us more money to go out and get someone at the trade deadline.
Yeah, exactly. And I like how you touched on Lindy Ruff's quotes, because much like I said about Holtz, where if you read between the lines, you saw that he was making it from a mile away. Same thing, you could tell that Nemec was probably getting sent back to the AHL 2 weeks ago if you paid attention to the quotes. They're very deliberate in what they do. They're very, they do pinpoint their little read between the lines moments. And when, I don't remember if it was Lindy Ruff or Tom Fitzgerald, but one of them said, before preseason even started, said something to the effect of, well, unless he really puts on a show here, we can afford to send him back to the AHL if needed, so we're not really worried about it. Yeah. And that quote right there told me, without a doubt, the plan was AHL unless they really, really are forced to keep him up, and that would have taken superstar level performances. So I think it was always the plan, and I don't think anyone should be surprised with it.
Right, unlike Holtz, there probably is another level that he can go in the AHL. Go be the best defenseman in the AHL.
Yeah.
He has the skill to do it. I mean, the team might not be that good this year, so that might be a bit of a hindrance, but he was good last year. He can be great this year.
I don't think I have anything else from this end.
No, I think we touched just about everything. So, yeah, just for the rest of the week, this will be coming out to you. Obviously, today you'll see to it on Tuesday. We're going to group back up on Wednesday and record and cover opening night, which will be
fun. Are you
fun.
Gentlemen going to be at opening night?
I actually did get a ticket today from friend of the show, co-host Dan. He's got an extra seat.
Oh, you did it? Did we bully you into getting it?
I made my own big boy decision.
No, we bullied this man.
It was a little bit of bullying, but I was cutting the grass today, and I was like, I should probably go to the game. It will be a good time, so I will be there.
I live over an hour and a half away, and a 6-month and 18-month-old in the house, and so gonna watch from home with the family.
Awesome. And, my answer is directly in between the both of you. I'm planning on going, but have not figured out anything beyond that sentence.
Yeah, that was me until Dan was like, "Yeah, I have an extra ticket." And I was like, "No, sure."
Yeah, I don't know. This season's gonna be real tough for me, because the team is good again and tickets are getting more expensive again. And over the past few years, I've had my different avenues of finessing ways to get in the building that I'm not sure are totally gonna work the whole year this year. So we're gonna see. It's gonna be interesting, but I'll try to find my way into the
You
building
know,
for opening
every
night.
season when we got Nico, I was like, man, tickets are gonna go up. When we got Jack and PK, I was like, man, tickets are gonna really go up.
Those were
Yeah.
kind of expensive opening night.
Yeah, that was an
No,
expensive
so
opening
what I'm
night.
getting at is every single one of these times, opening night, crazy runs, hot starts, whatever. Every time, how I've always bought tickets for like 2 decades now is morning of or night before
Yeah.
on resale. Buy tickets much cheaper. And every year, whenever any of these crazy draft picks or trades or whatever were happening, I was like, man, it's just going to get crazier and more difficult or impossible. It never happened. This might be the start of the first year where that actually comes to fruition, where it
Yeah,
actually will
you
start
saw
being more
crowds
difficult.
building up like big time, like in the middle of the winter.
Yeah.
It was like a Wednesday night. We were playing like I don't know, like St. Louis, whatever. It's like crowd was like 85-90% full. So
Yeah.
the fans
Yeah,
are back.
so we'll see how that keeps going. But yeah, I live ridiculously far. So like by the time a game ends and I get home from that, I don't get home till like midnight sometimes, just from traffic in Newark and all that.
Mhm.
And I'm too old for that now. So yeah, catch me on like a weekend matinee. I'll make one or two of those this year or something.
Awesome. Look forward to it. Love seeing your beautiful faces, gentlemen.
It's good to be back, folks. We'll be back on Thursday with another episode. Thanks for staying with us, guys.
Just make this the thumbnail.
Best Brad's the best player in the NHL.